Oh, yeah. If I can get my mic actually working, we'll start here in a second. Check. Check. There we go, Chicago, starting with the Sox. Perfect. All right, then let's get started. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the PFK The Show Legends League Divisional Preview, digging into the AL Central today. Starting off with the White Sox, which are the hometown favorites of, I believe it's 6 people in our league. And the Sox had the 7th pick in our draft, taking current GOAT, Mike Trout, with their first pick in the draft, which I think may end up being a pretty risky pick. That low vision going to be a lot of high K potential from Trout, and not as much power against lefties, but there's a lot of good reason to think that he's actually going to end up the best to ever play this game, and he looks pretty good in Sox pinstripes, so I can't really argue with that decision. So going around the horn, the White Sox have Jimmy Fox at first base, Ian Kinsler and DJ LeMahieu manning the keystone, Ernie Banks at short, Adrian Beltre at third, and Gabby Hartnett at catcher. In the outfield, got, as I said, Mike Trout patrolling center, Mel Ott out in right field, and Lou Brock and Goose Goslin sharing a platoon for left field with Freddie Freeman at the DH. Over on the pitching side of things, the White Sox have a really strong rotation of Steve Carlton, Old Pete Alexander, Tom Glavine as a third starter, give me a break, Gaylord Perry and Kevin Brown, with an equally strong bullpen headlined by Eric Gagne, who I think looks, I don't know, a little out of place in the Sox uniform, especially with that Nike swoosh. That just doesn't look right yet. Glad they actually have it in game, though, so it's realistic. So this team, I really think, is an incredible pitching club. This whole division is full of just lights-out pitching, and I think this team has a chance to be the lefty demolishers. They might be a bit of a streaky team. When they boom, they're really going to be booming, one of the hardest teams in the league to beat. But I think it could... Oh, lose a Cubs fan. Sorry, just saw on chat that one of the Chicago guys is actually a fan of the Cubs, which is scandalous, and I had no idea. I love it. But I do think that this team could end up streaky. These pitchers could get on a roll, but I think that there's some evidence that... there's not enough velocity and control to really maintain a nice consistent performance from these starters, and I think a lot of the same out of the lineup. But again, it's the lefty demolishing crew, because look at the core of this lineup. Mike Trout, Adrian Beltre, Jimmy Fox, Ernie Banks are all absolutely going to mash. Huge power numbers, great vision. Lefty pitchers are just going to be set out to dry here. And Mel Ott adding some thump at the back of the lineup. I think it's going to be really strong. I do think that the Chicago White Sox have the best lineup in their division, and their defense is just as good, if not better. If we look at these green numbers on all these stats going through, there really isn't a hole in this defense. It's not like we saw from the Padres in the NL West that the defense is going to be like one of their strengths, but there's really nobody here who's going to be a black hole in the field. Maybe Kinsler and LeMahieu at second, but that's second base. You live with a little bit of bad defense when you got bats like that. I thought the White Sox best picks of the draft were grabbing Mel Ott with their 8th round pick. That was a whole lot of value left on the board, a 95 overall, guy who plays right field and third base and has a batting profile. Not a lot of that was available by the time we got to the 8th round with 18 teams. And then Lou Brock, you'd think would have been one of the early guys. But Lou Brock didn't go until the 16th round. And I know there were a few people who were asking about him when he finally went off the board, so I think this one broke a lot of hearts. Huge speed, amazing aggressiveness on the base paths, and that 99 contact against righties. The vision and discipline are low, the power numbers are low, but holy crap, is that going to be an incredible leadoff hitter against right-handed pitchers, and covers a lot of ground in left field. Between him and Trout and Ott, this outfield defense is going to track down a lot of fly balls. The other, I think this was actually the best pick of the draft for the Sox, was Tom Glavine in the 6th round. I was expecting this guy to maybe go as one of the first 5 or 6 pitchers off the board. Maybe that's a little bullish. But Glavine doesn't really do anything bad, except for his velocity is a little low because he throws so many pitches. He's got that 73-mile-an-hour curveball, but his four-seamer is still coming in at 93. His other secondary pitches are in the 80s, so it's not like this guy is throwing beanballs up there. Beanballs? Is that something you say? I don't know. Whatever. But he's really not going to hurt you anywhere. I think Glavine could end up being the best pitcher on this squad, and that's saying a lot when you got Old Pete and Steve Carlton as your 1 and 2. So I think the keys for the lefty bashing White Sox are going to be that these low leverage guys in the bullpen don't blow otherwise amazing starts. I could see, a Steve Carlton or a Pete Alexander game, the White Sox get up 8-1, and it's the 6th inning, and one of these low leverage pen guys comes in and just gives up a big inning to one of these other massive power squads and throws away an otherwise amazing start. If they can make it to the back end of this pen, obviously it's going to be amazing. So it's really about the mid-level guys not completely losing it. If they pitch all right, then this team is going to be great. I do think that this squad might have to do some searching for a true leadoff hitter against lefties. Like we were talking about, Lou Brock with that huge contact skill against right-handed pitching, he doesn't do nearly as well against lefties, and especially his power is way, way down. So he's not going to be a serviceable leadoff hitter on both sides of the platoon. But I don't necessarily know that Ian Kinsler is going to be much better. He has better stats against lefties, but the strong side of his platoon is a reverse split, hitting actually better against righties than against lefties. It might end up that Mike Trout is actually the best secondary leadoff hitter on this team and slots into that position against lefties. Or maybe Kinsler does actually use his secondary skills with that good vision and can be the spark plug for this team. But we'll see how that works out in spring training. And then the last key for this team is that these 5 hitters, the lineup core, from Ernie Banks, Mel Ott, Jimmy Fox, Adrian Beltre, and Mike Trout, they're going to be hitting between 2 and 6 every day, it seems. And if they're every bit as good as their stats look like they are, then this has a chance to be the best offense in the Legends League. The chances of every single player hitting in your lineup in a franchise sim like this are pretty low from what I've seen of playing this game over the years. But of the lineups that I've looked at, this lineup could really hit, and all 5 of them could click. And if they do, it's going to be pretty scary. So that's it for the Sox. We're going to click over to the Cleveland Indians, who picked almost at the end of the draft with the 17th pick. So they had almost a quick turnaround on their picks. Let's see here. Who'd they take with their first pick? Josh Gibson for behind the plate. First catcher off the board, and you can see why. Hits like a true cleanup hitter. Incredible clutch stat. Good enough defense to be elite. And he's Josh Gibson. I mean, why wouldn't you want Josh Gibson hitting third for your lineup? Or third or fourth. He could do either. But going around the diamond for the Indians, we've got Dan Brothers at first base, Rogers Hornsby at second, Omar Vizquel, one of my all-time favorites, at short, David Wright at third, and Josh Gibson behind the plate with Jason Giambi doing the DHing. An outfield of Ed Delahanty, Josh Hamilton in center, and Frank Robinson in right rounds it out. And I think that brings me to a very interesting point about this team, which is the outfield. Indians GM was texting me during our draft asking about the positional eligibility for all these guys. And Josh Hamilton does have center as a secondary position. I believe Frank Robinson does as well, as does Ed Delahanty. Oh, no, he doesn't. But so there's a few guys on this squad that can take center, but none of them are center fielders by trade, which I guess is why he went and got Mike Cameron late in the draft as a great defensive sub, especially in those playoff games when you want a real center fielder out there, when you've got maybe Hank Aaron staring you down from home plate. So I think this is going to be huge. Josh Hamilton patrolling center in Cleveland with a 55 speed rating, that might not cut it. But he's got the good enough fielding ability with 85. He's got a decent reaction. It's not like he's going to be a liability out there. But he's not going to be a guaranteed amazing defensive asset. However, that bat is certainly enough that you want that guy in the lineup every day. And with a Jason Giambi plugging up your DH, being able to get Josh Hamilton out there every day is a big, big get. The best picks for the Indians, I thought, was Dan Brothers, who he got in the 11th round as a whole lot of value. Elite contact skill, elite clutch, vision, and discipline. I guess we're not playing with durability, but that's a 99. Thank God we have injuries off. Good fielding at first base isn't a big deal, but you'd rather he not be an error machine over there at first. And he just doesn't quite have the power that you'd imagine from some of these guys going in the early rounds. But for the 11th, I thought Brothers was a huge, huge get, especially with as few big lefty bats as there were left in the draft at that time. Over on the pitching side for the Indians, got Roy Halladay, Johan Santana, CC Sabathia, Kurt Schilling, and Roy Oswalt in the rotation. Brandon Webb out there lurking as a potential swing guy or using his ground ball skills out of the bullpen could be really interesting. And one of the more things, we got Billy O'Dell and Darren O'Day. So we've got, somebody needs to come up with a cool nickname for these two relievers as they do their work in the bullpen, along with Rob Dibble and Joe Nathan. This is definitely the best bullpen in the division, and this division has a lot of really good bullpens. It might be the best bullpen in the Legends League. I still need to go through everybody's to make sure. But this is not, Joe Nathan is not somebody you want to see when the game is on the line, and I think Rob Dibble's going to do a good job of handing him the ball. Back to my favorite picks of the Indians. Roy Halladay fell all the way into the 6th round, which was a huge get for the Indians. He's got great stats across the board. He's a huge sentimental favorite of for so many reasons. The primary cutter coming in at 95, and then a two-seam fastball at 95, with a curve and a sinker and a splitter. That arsenal is just nasty. No weaknesses from his stats. His control's a little low, but when you see his walks per 9 stat there at 84, it's not like he's going to be issuing so many free passes that it's going to be a problem. I think Roy Halladay is a real solid ace to get in the 6th round. It was a coup. As was Dellin Betances, who fell all the way to the 20th round. He's got some worrying stats. That 37 in walks per 9 is definitely troubling and might make you a little scared. His control is 63, again, kind of scary. But hits per 9 is 99 and Ks per 9 is 99. So he's going to strike a lot of people out, and when people do put the bat on the ball, it's either going to be a home run or an out. He's really a 3 true outcome pitcher, which is sometimes is going to blow you the game, but I think more often than not is going to be exactly the fire hose you need because he's not one of the top arms in this bullpen. You got Joe Nathan, you got Rob Dibble, you have the to-be-nicknamed Odell O'Day team, and you got Brian Harvey and Brandon Webb and Wilbur Wood. Betances is really your last guy, and yet he's probably the guy you want on the mound when you just need a strikeout right now. I thought that was a great pick to grab in the 20th round. So the keys for the Indians, I kind of put a quote when I was writing down my notes on all these teams. The theme for this team is don't beat yourself. Everything about this team is built for consistency and for not making unforced errors. There's good, not great defense. There's really no holes in the lineup, and all the signs of a really consistently performing team. So that's key number 1, is stay consistent. Don't get streaky. Without the consistent power threat, I think that if this team does get streaky, then a losing streak could really tank an otherwise fantastic season. But if they stay consistent and do the easy things well, then this is going to be a team to be reckoned with. The second key is to keep the ball on the ground. There's a pretty, I believe it's a really good infield defense. Yeah, Omar Vizquel, David Wright, Hornsby's not fantastic, but Brothers is a great first baseman. So you've got really good infield defense on this team. And then we've got this rotation, which is full of guys that can keep the ball on the ground. The home run per 9 stat for all these guys isn't that great, meaning that they're not, by definition, fly ball pitchers. They're not trying to induce a lot of fly balls, because when a batter does put the ball in the air against these guys, it tends to be a home run. So that tells me that this game is seeing these pitchers as ground ball pitchers. If that does synergize, where this starting rotation is keeping the ball on the ground and that infield defense is able to put it away, that's a recipe for success, especially because the outfield defense isn't particularly speedy. If that all clicks, I'd say book this team to the ALCS. If that doesn't click, it's really kind of a crapshoot how this is going to work out. My final key for the Indians is that CC, Johan, and Schilling, one of those three guys, becomes a strikeout monster. I don't see any one of these guys competing for the Cy Young, but they've all got really high K per 9 stat. 84 for Schilling, 88 for CC, and 90 for Johan. If one of these guys posts a season with 210, 220 strikeouts, all of a sudden the Indians now have a playoff rotation, where you've got Halladay being an absolute ace, and then somebody else who has a chance to, I don't know, pitch an 8-inning, 13 strikeout game. And then you have enough weapons in the rest of this pen to make it work. Yeah, if all that comes together, I'm going to be terrified of the Indians. This is one of my favorite teams that I've looked at so far, just as far as guys I like on this team, synergizing with a team strategy that really comes together. I dig it. And then we go over to the Tigers, which I think might be the best team in the league. I say that with a really big asterisk. When I first went through and did kind of a buckshot rating of everybody's squad without looking at any actual overall stats or numbers, the Tigers popped out to me as being the most solid roster front to back. It's like they've got a first or second tier guy at every single position on this roster. The strategies really seems to be coming together. And at first I was like, oh, crap, it looks like Detroit is really going to run away with this one. But then I started getting deeper and looking into the strategies people were using, looking under the hood with some of their players, and I'm thinking more, I'm like, oh, maybe the gap isn't that big, but I don't know. You tell me. Let's go through the squad. At first base, we got Joey Votto, second base, Robinson Cano, Robin Yount at shortstop, Eddie Matthews at third, and Jorge Posada at the catcher. Jose Canseco out in left, Mickey Mantle, their first-round pick, out in center, and Christian Yelich in right, with JD Martinez doing the DHing. Really awesome weapons off the bench for this team as well. Trey Turner, I think statistically, is actually the best base stealer outside of, a couple of the really top-tier guys that went really early, but 97 speed, 97 stealing ability, 99 base running aggressiveness. This is the best pinch runner that we have in the game, even if his bat doesn't make him a starter. Veritek, super solid backup catcher. Scott Rowland, I thought, was a really good pick for this team because he provides really good defense as a spell for first base, second base, or third base, which are the spots where this team would need a little bit of a defensive boost. And then Bernie Williams, which, as the Tigers GM said to me, was a completely blind pick. He was just hoping that Bernie was actually good in this game, and he's a fantastic overall player. He's not going to be gunning anybody from the warning track like Ichiro, but he's a good fielder. He's fast enough to cover any of the three outfield spots, and he's a good enough bat that you want him in there late in the game with that 87 clutch from all of his World Series appearances. Let's go over to the pitching side for Detroit. Sandy Koufax, Jose Fernandez, Steven Strasburg, Fernando Valenzuela, and Walker Buehler. And that's why I looked at this team and thought, yeah, the Tigers kind of got this thing in the bag. This rotation just kind of knocks me out. Koufax was picked up pretty early, but Jose Fernandez, I think this game actually, when the game automatically did, it set all of your lineups and rotations by itself, and then I went in and fixed it, so it's what you all put on the internet. The game put Jose Fernandez as the ace and Koufax as the 2, and the Tigers got Jay Fern in the 4th round. That could be the pick of the draft because this guy could end up being an absolute ace. 99 velocity and 99 break is going to make that 92 K per 9 stat really play up. The only downside to him is that 85 stamina and an 80 home runs per 9. There might be a few games, where he just has the big inning and gets chased, but otherwise, Jose Fernandez could be a Cy Young finalist real easy. Walker Buehler was snagged in the 15th round. So he's got Koufax and he's got grandbaby Koufax. He's just missing Kershaw to kind of round off the Dodgers trilogy here. Buehler doesn't have as good a stats as he does in this year's version of the show because in the Legends League, kind of everybody got tempered down a little bit so that the all-time Hall of Fame guys could be the true 99s. But he's still really good. I mean, other than DeGrom, maybe Garrett Cole, he's right there with the best modern pitcher by the stats that we have in game. Valenzuela and Strasburg are just incredible as a 3-4. This rotation is gnarly. And this is what I was saying about this division being full of great bullpens. You don't see a lot of high overall numbers as compared to some of the other teams, but Trevor Hoffman is an amazing closer out of the back end. As I think I mentioned in one of my emails, the fact that his age is 43 means that the game is going to slowly make him worse throughout the season until he's like a 82 overall by the end of the year. I'm just going to have to go back in and manually edit that every time it happens. There's a few players that's just true of, like Justin Verlander. It sucks, but I'll do it, and it's not that big of a deal. His primary pitch is that circle change, which as a starter I'd be terrified of, but as a closer with his 98 clutch, I'm pretty psyched to watch on the streams. Bobby Jenks has some pretty good stats. I'm not too worried about him walking too many people because I think he's with that velocity is going to play up, and there's a lot of big swing and miss bats in this league. Roberto Osuna is going to play a lot higher than an 88 just from watching his arsenal in this game before. I guess Randy Myers and Ugueth Urbina are maybe the only question marks on this whole staff, and that's saying a lot. So I already mentioned that my favorite picks for the Tigers was Fernandez in the 4th, Buehler in the 15th, and then I really liked the Scott Rowland pick in the 24th round. So third to last pick in the draft, and he got a guy that can spell Votto, Cano, and Matthews. I think Matthews will need the least relief, but if you need a defensive sub, he's got him, and that's great. I've themed this team the on-base machine because they have so many guys who are either going to put the bat on the ball or draw walks. Really high vision stats means that this team is just going to see a lot of pitches. These discipline numbers are just gnarly, front to back. I think Robinson Cano has the lowest discipline, and he's a real-life walk monster, so I don't know why that's true. But this team is going to see a lot of pitches. This team is going to burn through your starting pitcher really quick and get to your bullpen, so you better hope that you have some depth there. My keys for the Tigers, number 1 is to hit a lot of dingers. This team, with as much on base as they have, are really going to have to follow it through by hitting a ton of home runs. Mickey Mantle, JD Martinez, Christian Yelich, Jose Canseco, Eddie Matthews, they're on this team to put the ball in the seats. I think they're going to put enough runners on base that it's going to be 2-run, 3-run grand slam home runs more often than not. But if this core doesn't produce that power, then I think that this team falls short of its potential. So I'm thinking that 200 home runs is the floor for this team, and they need to outperform that by a good chunk to really live up to their potential. The second key for the Tigers is they have to use these bench weapons well, which is really tough with an AI manager who's just going to do whatever the hell they're going to do. I think that this bench is simple enough that, well, who's my late inning defensive sub? It's Bernie Williams and Scott Rowland. Oh, my catcher's tired. Play Jason Varitek. I need a pitch run. Here's Trey Turner. If the AI does that, then I think that this bench is going to add a lot of value to the team through strategy. And then on the pitching side, I think that the big key is avoiding the big inning through 7. The home runs per 9 outlook for this team isn't elite. So that's really where this rotation can be gotten to, is some of these squads that just have, Frank Thomas in the middle of the lineup. If they can avoid the big inning, especially with some of these middle of the rotation guys, and get the ball to the back end of the bullpen, then that's going to be the key for the Tigers. So after looking at this division and thinking over it, like I said, I initially thought the Tigers were kind of a shoo-in to take the division. Then I started thinking like, oh man, maybe it's actually the White Sox. That lineup and that defense is a little bit too good. I don't know if I can write them off just like that. And now all of a sudden I'm starting to think maybe the Indians are really putting things together, and that synergy of the strategy is going to make everybody play above their level. So screw it. I have no idea what this division is going to look like. I'm not even going to make a call right now. But I guess I've already planted my flag by saying that I think the Tigers might be the best team in the league. So I'll go ahead and say I think the Tigers take the division with 15 question marks. All right, that's the AL Central. I'm going to close this down and jump back on the stream with the NL Central. See you in a second.